I didn't really want that job.
1969 was a marvelous time for anyone looking for a job. So I took my time, went from one interview to the other, until my mother asked, "Can't you find work?"
The time was 1979, and I was returned from abroad in 73, so I was a nobody.
It was an effort, and it was, you had to take time off your regular job.
But then there was a former chairman of the AmCham who convinced me in a very charming way. It was Quincy Hunziker, who died recently, and he said, "You just owe that to your country and you owe it to the States, so why don't you do it for a while?"
And one of the persons who I was interviewed by was Egon Zehnder, a young executive searcher, a founding member and dedicated officer of the chamber. Among many things, he asked me, "Why do you want this job?" And I said, "Well, I'm not sure whether I wanted this job or not."
This was then right during the middle of the big banking crisis. And I followed on, of course, from both Jim Shiro and then subsequently Jacques Aigrain, and things started to melt. And I remember very well Martin came to me and said, "Mike, could you be the chairman of the board? The banking industry has just become so toxic." And I had to laugh, of course, because approaching the head of the largest pesticide industry in the world and saying the banking industry is toxic is quite unexpected, particularly here in Switzerland.
I didn't think a second that I would be with the chamber for 36 years. It's a long time, I tell you, but never a dull moment.
In my term, there was 9/11. And 9/11 was a real discontinuity. Homeland security became very important in the US, travel restrictions, and the number of interactions between the AmCham and the embassy in Bern just exploded.
I spent 20 years abroad, and the last 10 years in the United States, I was very Americanized. And coming into Switzerland, I had no network of relationships. And then I had this opportunity to serve as the chairman of the chamber, and that was a wonderful way for me to make contacts with important people of the Swiss economy.
Everybody was ready to receive your phone call or sit together. So I think it was a time effort, but it was well paid back.
I think the AmCham is not just some chamber of commerce, it is the chamber of commerce. And what we've been able to accomplish over the years, the reputation of the AmCham within the government circles. I used to routinely go to the World Economic Forum. The reputation of the Swiss American Chamber there is fantastic.
This was personally a very, very good experience, because it was giving me also new perspective on different issues and items, and wider, of course, understanding of the relation between Switzerland and the USA, not just from my core business, but from the overall perspective, including the political view.
I didn't feel I was just simply a figurehead that occasionally would go for a handshake or so, but I involved myself in all these issues. It was a very rewarding time for me.
Today, not at that time, but today it has really developed into a highly professional organization. It has become a very strong and effective voice for the Swiss American business community. It is one of the largest AmChams in Europe, even worldwide, and it is looked at as a model case of a successful AmCham.
After I finished my education here in Switzerland, I had a chance, and I was fascinated by the Apollo project by NASA in the States, and I had a chance to work for that project. So I traveled to the United States, worked there on an exchange basis, and enjoyed the work tremendously. It was fascinating.
Well, I was in the US for the first time in 1962. I was a trainee in Wall Street.
America, for a young man from the finance industry, was really the optimum. And experience on Wall Street was part of the formation.
Once the project was completed, people were set on the moon, came back safely. They laid off within 6 months 150,000 people, and I was one of them.
Remember these big plastic painted cows all over the place in Zurich? So one of the board members had the glorious idea to export these cows into the US. And he presented a proposal to the board with a proposed agent in New York to help us find sponsors in the US. I wanted to kill this proposal with the argument that this was not in the mandate of the Swiss American Chamber of Commerce. And I did convince the majority of the people, not everyone, but then simultaneously the agent went broke. So that finally convinced everyone that we shouldn't do it.
I was told at the request of the visitor, who was a potential nominee for president of the Democratic Party, I shall not mention his name, he would like to have a dinner in a private environment. And so I offered, it was in the summertime, to do this in my garden on the terrace. And so at some point of the evening, the guest of honor took me aside and we walked in the garden, just the two of us. And he said, now if you were in my position, what do you regard to be the most important economic issues that we have to deal with? And inwardly, I had to smile. And I felt flattered, of course, but I said to myself inwardly, that's the easiest question to answer, because I will never be put to the test.
The basic attitude of the two species, the Swiss and the American, if it exists, it has some similarities. They both tend to be ambitious and to do things well. And the second one is they both believe that they have to teach other people how to do things.
What's your preferred American food?
Oh, that's difficult to say. What I would say, it's really a good steak.
Whenever I'm in the United States, the first evening I have a shrimp cocktail and I have a New York sirloin steak.
Oh gosh. I'm not that much of a meat eater. Also, each time I come to the United States, twice at least, I have a real good American steak.
That has changed over the time. I used to live in Chicago for quite a while, and there the big steaks, that was the in thing for younger people, students.
When it comes to food, I probably stick with the Swiss kitchen.
My wish is that the quality of the staff at the chamber, the quality of the CEO, the forward-looking attitude of the CEO and his staff, and the forward-looking attitude of the board is going to prevail.
The mission continues to be vibrant and contemporary, and though some of the names and faces will change, the purpose of the AmCham is going to endure.
Not just good luck, but go on as everything was managed so far. Stay as professional as you are as an organization.
And I certainly wish the present CEO and all the future CEOs and the members of the board of directors that they can act as successfully for the next 50 years as they have been acting for the past 50 years.